it also shows sort of the one thing I don't think religion can ever be acquitted of, which is solipsism. It may claim to be modest and humble, but it's actually an extremely arrogant claim. Not as to know what you think God intends, but to assume that he's the object of your attention at all. Excuse me, I'm just being very humble today, I'm just on an errand for God. Wait, hold it right there. Hold it right. What did you just say? How modest is that? As they shove you off the pavement. I'm in a hurry, I'm doing God's will, excuse me. No, that's not humble. It's unbelievably vain.
Well, solipsism seems to be quite central to the human condition, though, doesn't it? Because that's exactly, all of these sort of beliefs that have replaced religion. I was going to ask you about, that if in some possible way religion could be sort of eradicated, which is, I don't honestly believe is ever going to happen.
No, it's impossible, I think, by definition. Until we give up wish thinking and fear of death, it is not. Freud is quite right. It can't be transcended, but it can be domesticated. It can be tamed a little, or privatized a bit. But you can't persuade me when I read my horoscope in the Daily Mail, and I know what Adorno said about horoscopes. I know what Pythagoras said, and I have refutations of my own. I know what complete piffling is. One day it said, a member of the opposite sex is very interested and will show it today. Changed my whole fucking day. Did I know I was being a fool? Of course I did. If we're sitting here and a rusting fridge comes plunging from the sky through the air, hits you, and I'm just sitting here, am I supposed to think that's random? Not at all. Not at all. So religion takes advantage of the bad wiring and our mammalian selfishness and our solipsism. Of course, it has a huge natural advantage that can't be taken away from it.
But I wonder if some of the sort of systems that are replacing
the guy who wears the Bible in his top pocket and the bullet doesn't go quite through. Come on, all that.
Or the guy that has the.
You will never stop impressing.
As Woody Allen said, the guy that has the bullet in his top pocket and somebody throws a Bible at him, and he would have been killed if it wasn't for the bullet.
Or the guy who says, "There, but for the grace of God, go I," who means there by the grace of God goes some other fuck. That's all it means. If it means anything, it means that. Yeah, but you're not going to cure the species of this. It's not possible.
But then if we're replacing that with other types of superstition that don't have the sort of... Is there something about religion in its... And I'll be harsh, in its social control aspect that perhaps is a bit more sort of useful to the organisation of mankind than astrology or crystals or UFOs or something is?
Yes, I mean, I prefer someone who said that they would lay their life on the proposition that Jesus of Nazareth had died for him. I prefer to be sitting with someone like that than someone who was a me-decade personal growth cult artist, of course. I just think they're more morally serious as well as more intellectually so. Yeah, that must be true, I think. And though I would never stop saying that someone who thinks that a human sacrifice took place on their behalf was being very narcissistic, and actually in a rather revolting way. Nonetheless, there are people who believe it in manner or form that I can't totally despise, as I do a Deepak Chopra fan. Mm-hmm. There are those who say, well, it's good to have a faith that is non-materialistic. There's more than greed in this world. Is fair enough, but I mean that's perfectly... You don't need the supernatural to derive that view. That's a view I hold myself. It's a perfectly humanistic one.
But do we need something to replace the supernatural?
Well, a lot of us don't. Is all I can be sure about. Many of us absolutely don't have the need for it at all, and thus shouldn't be oppressed by those who do.
But it's criticism quite often thrown to say humanism. I think it's actually a criticism you yourself put in an interview you did with New Humanists, that humanism does just replace a set of supernatural values with a set of values that may as well be supernatural in treating them as sacredly.
Well, I suppose probably almost everyone does have the need to think of something as a belief that to them is worth dying for.
Yeah.
Or indeed worth killing for. I mean, if I I don't think I would totally respect, or I hate the word totally. I don't think I couldn't really much respect anyone who didn't feel that about something. I would be very interested to know what it was, of course, but to say there was nothing worth the relativist persuasion, in other words, nothing really is worth fighting or dying or arguing about. It's all random. That strikes me as repulsive. I can't tell you why I think that.
Yeah.
I ought probably to think that it would be a good thing if everyone thought, nothing's really worth killing or something. Why do I not think that?
So
I don't know.
What for you?
But I'm perfectly happy at the thought of there being irreconcilable contradictions.
What for you is
it doesn't bother me that there are irreconcilable contradictions, or things that cannot be known, because there are things our cranial endowment can't know.
Yeah.
Particularly about physics, or what we like to call physics, the implications of physics in the cosmos. It's an absolute certainty now that the things that we wouldn't be able to understand. They may be knowable, but not by us. We don't have enough brain power. We are still evolving, I think. That, by the way, seems to be a fairly consistent finding now, that the brain is still evolving. Which is, by the way, almost a one-line refutation of religion.
Yeah.
That what we've made up so far is only a tiny bit of what we might be able to make up. But we're not going to find out really what. We can't imagine what the event horizon really looks like.
Yeah.
Or what the Big Bang is. We can't do it.
Yeah.
I remember with some very bright kid saying, try to explain it, saying, it would be as if, once all of matter was in one quite small suitcase, and the suitcase just sprang open, and then that sort of stuff. The kid said, what was outside the suitcase? I said, I don't know. And neither does Einstein.
And time was in the suitcase.
And neither could
well.
Einstein.
Time
or
began
walking.
at the opening of the suitcase.
It's
Get your head around
impossible.
that.
It's impossible. And that's not because I'm stupid, it's because I don't have enough brain cells.
Yeah.
And nor does anyone else.
But that doesn't.
And I'm
mean,
happy, I don't mind.
That doesn't mean that we
don't
decide
mind.
the supernatural is outside the suitcase.
I don't mind. I remember my friend Robert Conquest was asked, did all the great work on the totalitarians, he said, why do you think that Nazism is worse than Stalinism? He said, I just feel that it is.
I just do.
Yeah, I just do. I feel it is worse, morally worse.
Well,
I think it's a perfectly respectable answer.
I sort of mentioned the idea of sort of religion as the sort of the social control thing, and there's we all know the arguments, and we've been over it enough in Little Atoms, and Nick Cohen, a previous guest, has written a book about it. We all know the arguments about why people on the left are basically saying anything that Al-Qaeda throws at us is basically our fault. But there's a sort of school on more obviously on our side of this that also says a similar thing. The likes of Melanie Phillips and Mark Stein, who will say, this is our fault because Europe's given up Christianity, and the 60s, permissive society that came in the 60s, all of these sort of things.
Dinesh D'Souza most recently in the United States as a bestseller on this point.
So what I can always, I can sort of take this element and think, okay, Melanie and whatever, you're right. Okay, so perhaps if Western society became more a Christian society, perhaps that might, I don't know, is this a good thing? I don't know. But I can always come to the conclusion of, where does this leave me? Where does this leave you, Christopher, as someone who's, how can...
Well, I'm not sure to what extent Melanie or Mark take that view, but it's been very explicitly put by a very leading American cultural conservative, Dinesh D'Souza, that the left is responsible for 9/11 because of its habituation to secularism, materialism, abortion, pornography, and the other things that have justifiably inflamed the jihadists, or whatever we agree to call them. Before we go on with any of that, I'll tell you one corollary that couldn't possibly hold. If we became more Christian or more Jewish, as Melanie would advocate, if you tell me that would make them less Islamic, I think you are proposing something very improbable.
Well, Melanie does advocate as becoming more Christian, which I don't really understand that she's Jewish.
Judeo-Christian.
Yes. If we took more pride in the Crusades and more pride in the achievements of Judaism, I don't think the corresponding decline in Islamic fundamentalism could be expected.